Alright, welcome to the quick tutorial on processing. You'll see underneath this video there is a link to the reference folder of processing. I would recommend that you kind of get familiar with more of the tools that I go over in this, and it's very quickly and easy to understand as it will give you a step-by-step idea on how each of the tools work. For the most part, is all your sketches is what we call them. You could think of them as programs, but processing calls them a sketch. So all your sketches starts with two functions. So the first function you're always going to set up is the setup. And how it looks is exactly like this. So you have void setup, open and close curl bracket, open squiggly bracket, close squiggly bracket. Then underneath that we have void draw. Now, you can create different functions. These are two functions that are actually kind of embedded inside processing. How this works is setup, any code that's in here will run once, while draw is a continuous loop. So one thing that you'll learn and you'll as you get better, you'll probably use more and more of these features, is one thing is how to do a comment. Comments are very useful in that sometimes when I want to write something, I want to be able to put a comment in the code so I know where that's going. To put a comment is you do two forward slashes, and as you can see it's gray, telling me that processing won't actually read this. As you can see it says runs once. Now here is a comment that says runs as a loop, meaning anything in this draw program is going to run over and over. So I will show you kind of the basic ideas of what you should have on every single sketch. So one should be a size command. So size is going to be how wide the window the program is going to run in. I like to use an 800 by 800. And so now, I'll quickly go over what we call this. Size is what the command we use. And inside this command we have what we call two parameters. Some commands require 4 parameters, some commands require 10 parameters, and some commands require only 1 parameter, depending on the command. At the end of each line, what we do is we end it with a semicolon. So this means this tells processing this is just going to be one line of code, and then here's where the command ends. To start a new command, you can hit enter and go on the next line. You also could actually put another command behind this semicolon, but just for kind of how it looks and the feel, is usually I do a line per command. But it's totally up to you. It's your different coding style. So what this will do now, if I were to just run this, you would create a size that's 800 by 800. Okay? And next is the draw. Now one command that I always like to start off with is what kind of background would I have? Now the background has an option. It could have 1 parameter or it could have 3 parameters. If I put 1 parameter in, for example like this is going to treat it as a grayscale, which means this is going to have 0 color, which means it would be black. Now most computer programs run not how your art class runs, but actually how light works, meaning no light is black. Now the most amount of light, and this actually gets back to binary code, is 255. This would be all light, which means the background would be white. If I pick a number in the middle, it would be kind of a gray. You also could use background as 3 different parameters. For example, what this is now, this is using what we call an RGB code. So how much red, how much green, and how much blue. Now there is lots of features out there that you can find on Paint, or even actually Processing has one under the Tools option at the top of the screen that says Color Selector, and it will tell you for any color you want how much red, green, and blue are in it. And so what I'll do is I will run this and then kind of talk about it. So as you see, what comes up is a screen that's 800 by 800 and that has this color that has that certain amount of red, green, and blue to it. So if I close this and I go back, I can see that it's mostly blue because this parameter is closest to 255. It does have a little bit of red or green in it. So just a quick tutorial that if I lower the blue in it and I hit play again, you'll notice it's a different color of blue. It's a darker blue. Now, as you can see in the tutorial, or just a quick video, this is a very geometric space. So it's made up of X and Y coordinates. It's a little different though than the Cartesian coordinate system. As you know, and probably have learned in other math classes, the Cartesian coordinate system has an origin that would be probably in the center of this, which would be probably right about there. The y is positive as we go up, and the x is positive as we go to the right. And of course left is x negative values, and the down is going to be negative y values. In processing though, our origin is actually in the top left corner. The reason they have that is, as you can see, if I make this size different, if we did a Cartesian coordinate system, the origin would move as according to where the size is. This way the origin will always be here. That no matter what, the top left corner will be the origin. Now the x's are the same, that this would be positive x, and then going the other way off the screen would be negative x. The other thing that's a little different though is positive y is now down. So an easy way to remember this as, if you think about it, is the x and y values are simply just distance values. So as I go further away from the origin, my x and y's will increase. You can use negative y values and negative x values, but that will mean just that image will be off the canvas and you won't be able to see it. So to give you an idea, and a very simple one, I'm going to show you how you draw a rectangle. Now you can choose to click on the rectangle link that's in the reference, and you can see that there's multiple ways to do rectangles. But just simply one way is the command is rect, and now this one will use 4 parameters. The first parameter is where the top left corner of the rectangle will be. So I'm going to put it 100 pixels to the right, and we're going to go 200 pixels down. So if you remember, this is the x value. So just like in a Cartesian coordinate system, first value is x and the second value is y. X would be to the right, but of course this is processing, not the Cartesian coordinate system. So this y value is now down, 200 pixels down. The next thing we're going to do is the next parameter is how wide we want it. So let's say we want 300. And the next one will be 200. And when I run this, what you will see is you will see that it actually started, like where we did, 300 pixels across, 200 pixels down. And now we have a rectangle. Now we can do some interesting things. Before the background, we can do a fill command. And fill works just like background. We could use 1 parameter, which will be a grayscale, or 3 parameters, which will be a color. And let's say I wanted this rectangle to be all red. So I'm going to put 255 of red, no green, and no blue in it. When I run this, you will see now it's a red rectangle. Now, obviously this is very boring for the user, not very interactivity. So what I'm going to use now is I'm going to use a certain command called mouse X and mouse Y, which means the X value of my mouse will be the X value of the coordinate where it starts, and the Y value of my mouse will be the Y value of the coordinate of where the rectangle starts. When I run this now, you will see that the rectangle actually follows my mouse. You can do ellipses, where the same thing happens. You can go ellipse, and we have an ellipse that follows. Now you'll notice with the ellipse though, instead of the first 2 parameters being the top left corner, the first 2 coordinates are the center of the ellipse, where the 300 is how wide the ellipse is, and the 200 is how tall the ellipse is. Close this window down again. You can do a line. Now how a line works is this will be the first coordinate of the line, and this will be the second coordinate of the line, and it's going to draw a line between the coordinates. So as you can see, now the 300, 200 is staying, but it's drawing a line from my mouse X and my mouse Y to the 300, 200 coordinate. And so play around with that. So you might want to learn how stroke works. So stroke is actually how the color of the rectangle is outlined, or the color of the line. So if I change this, just so you can see how stroke works, and I go back to rectangle, what it's going to do, it's going to fill the rectangle with red, but draw the outline of the rectangle in green. So when I run this, you can see that it has a green outline, but a red inside. Another command is stroke weight. What this does is how much of the outline do we want. So we want, say, 10 pixels wide. So now the outline is going to be a little wider. So what I would recommend you do is if you go to Help at the top of the screen and go and Find and Reference, and what I would invite you to do is to look at these and see is what you can do points, quads, rectangles, triangles, arcs. These are shapes. So I want you to draw a picture just so you get the idea of it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to embed our learning of logic inside this command of processing.